Hello and happy Saturday, July the 15th. I'm Brian Colin and welcome to my creature curation. On tonight's adventure, I am going to be...
Hello and happy Saturday,
Hang on
July
just
the
one
15th.
second.
I'm
Sorry.
Brian Colin and welcome to my creature curation.
Alright, I am going to be continuing on this sculpture for Dogmite Games. I've already done 2 sessions, sculpting sessions, and with this I'm going to be doing it and... this should be the last session, I believe, for this one. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into this. If you have any questions along the way, please do not hesitate to ask. I'm more than happy to share any knowledge or ideas or thoughts I have on the piece itself. So, along with this, some of the things when I'm first doing this is I just want to kind of take a look at this and look at the initial concept sketch, which you can see in the window, in the panel on the left-hand side. And I'm going to go ahead and one of the things that I want to do is I want to bring out kind of the war markings that are in it right now. And so with this, I'm looking at the eyes, and there's kind of these marks along the muzzle, and I'm just going to draw those in with my marker tool. I'm just doing a regular old Sharpie. And bear with me just a little bit. It's been a while since I did the Facebook Live, so if I am slow to see something, it may just be a little bit delayed. And with this, marking this down, I just want to kind of give myself an idea of where I'm going to build up a little more of the fur, because I kind of want that to have a slightly raised texture on top of here, aside from it being a different color as well, for when it comes time to make with the painting. I think it'll help it stand out and look pretty good. Gonna mark it just, it's a little bit bigger than what it was on the original concept sketch, but I think it's gonna kind of work well with what we have here. And then some of the things that we're gonna do this evening, we are going to finish up the axe. We are going to work on adding a little bit more fur in some of the spots that I don't have it. And just finishing things up, just finalizing some bits. Alright. And just going to put a couple more markings in here. Gonna look at it from the front and the side, know that they're going to be slightly different, but that should be okay. And if you have any questions along the way, don't hesitate to ask. Whoops. Alright. There we go. Alright, so now that I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and put on my gloves. Well, no, before we do that, before I start mixing up some Magic Sculpt, I'm going to go ahead and put some leather around the handle here to start to build this out just a little bit. With this, I'm just going to tie a quick knot. I know that most of this is going to get covered up a little bit. I'm going to bring that down to the base and just roll it around. By using this real leather bit in here, it helps add to the realism. And then once this is in, I'll probably add a little bit of Magic Sculpt to the dowel, so it's not so that it's not just wrapped around, not just leather all the way up to the end. So here we are, and I'm going to give this a little tie off here. And then I will put a little bit of Magic Sculpt around that once it's in place to kind of help keep that in its spot. Now, I think it needs another piece of leather to keep going, because that's kind of a small little handle. So give me just a second, I'm going to grab another piece. Alright, grabbed a couple options out of my chest. Let's see. Unwind that just a little bit. what I end up doing is I end up painting this once it's actually in place. I don't mind there being a couple little knots and things like that, and it just adds to the texture a bit. If I can actually tie a knot, that is. And there we go. Finally got a little something going on there. Let's pull this around underneath the backside and keep wrapping it up. Alright, tying this through. Alright, gonna give it one last tighten, and then I'll put a little bit of Magic Sculpt on the inside once we get a little bit closer. Now I'm starting to see the feed. Sounds good, and thank you, Dino. Alright, tightening this up just a little bit. And I'm gonna snip the end of that strap of leather off just a bit. I don't want it to fray off too much. There we go. So now that we've got that in, I feel like I'm in a good spot to actually start doing the sculpting on top of this. Gonna probably work on a little bit of the axe at first, and then move on to adding some of the additional details to the Warhound. All right. So for anybody that's watching that has not watched me before, I'm going to be using Magic Sculpt. It's a 2-part air drying epoxy. I always wear gloves when using it because I have an allergic reaction to it. My eyes start to swell up, things get all sorts of itchy, and it's definitely not fun. So I would highly recommend gloves. With that, the 2 parts, you can mix them equally. They come in equal amounts, so you might as well work them down at the same time. I'm going to start with the resin. Doesn't really matter which one you start with, whether it's the resin or the hardening agent. I'm going to mix up small batches tonight because I'm really finessing this and working in details to kind of finalize this. So I'm going to grab just a small ball of the resin. I get it in these big 10-pound buckets. And then I'm going to get the resin, or the hardening agent. Now they're slightly different colors of gray. The hardening agent's going to be a darker gray. It's also a little bit tougher and stickier to pull out of the bucket. All right. Once you have the two together, you can see the slight variation in color, the light gray versus the dark gray. I roll them out into a coil. Both of them. And then once I have that, I'm going to pull them and then kind of twist them together. And once they're all twisted up, I'm just going to mash the two together. You want to get it so that there are no, there's no marbleization. Right now you can see the two different grays. You really want to mix them together so that they get completely mixed through. And, let's see. I just got a text message asking if I was live. I guess, hopefully things are streaming through okay and not getting hung up. Let me, finish mixing this up a little bit. Try not to touch my electronic devices. Let's see. Pardon me for just a second while I respond, and hopefully this will, hopefully it's not freezing up. And I'm just going to say yep, and then I will be back in. Alright. Alright, so, here we go. I've got some of the Magic Sculpt, and I'm just going to start mixing it back up. Alright, now that it's all mixed together, I'm going to start working it into, first, the axe. I'm going to put a little additional bit on the outside here, because I want to kind of build that up and shape that into a little more stylized piece of metal that's going to be in here. And gonna pull this down and around. And where's my water bottle? I always use a water bottle when I'm working on this. Just gonna spray this down to help smooth things out a little bit. And let's see, just gonna keep smoothing this down just a bit. Once we get this part of the axe worked out, then I'm gonna do the other side as well so it kind of matches up. And smooth this down. Let's see, grab my sculpting tools. I use tools that are kind of like dental tools almost, in many ways, so a lot of the different pieces look like it. Haha, excellent. Well, that's good to know. Thank you, Dino. Alright, so I'm going to grab... I know it's on super delay, like the audio and me seeing people's comments is always delayed no matter what service I'm using, whether it's Twitch or Facebook. So I'm going to use just a kind of, it almost looks like a gardening shovel. I'm going to use that to kind of help get a nice clean line in here. To give it separation between what was there before and what's there now, because I think I almost want the part of the axe part to be almost bone-like in material, because then I can give it a little bit more of a mythology behind it in my world Revilo, versus just having it just be a straight metal object. So I'm gonna build this up just a little bit. Alright, now that I've got that in, I'm going to spin that around just, well, no, I'll go ahead, yeah, I'll spin that guy around just a little bit. And then we'll work on the back of the axe, just a scotch. Alright, let's see if I can get this so that that axe is in some sort of camera view and still be workable. Alright, so now I'm going to take this a little more magic sculpt and work this onto the back here in the same spot. There's areas on the back here where I didn't get to do as much nice detail work as the previous session, because I needed some of this to cure up. So I'm going to go in and clean that up as well on tonight's stream. Now, when I'm starting to work in an area where I have stuff on the other side that is not cured yet, I need to be careful of where I'm using as a point of balance, or not balance, but a point to hold on to try and keep things steady and stable. So grabbing onto the top of this axe here seems to be working out okay for now. Pull a little more of this down just a bit. Hey, Lorian, thank you. How are you doing this Saturday evening? Alright, sorry that this is not the best view of this this part right here, but I'm just adding a little bit more to try and get this evened up. I'm going to smooth it down with the back of my thumbnail around where it's coming out with the kind of tooth that I have spiked out of the top of the axe. And then I'm going to do the same thing, the flat of my thumbnail on that side as well. Alright, now that I have that done, I'm going to take that same shovel-looking tool. That's not the right tool. Where did I put you, my friend? Back in my bin. And I'm going to come along the top line here and smooth that out, try and get another nice straight line. I'm going to pull this in towards me a little bit more just to get a good line. Now this stuff can be sanded down after the fact. I just tend to try and get as much of this worked out in this phase as possible. Spraying it with water just makes the tools drag across it nice, clean, easy. Alright, so I have an idea to add a little bit of extra detail to this. I need to grab something out of a cabinet right over here. I will still be talking and I'll be right back in just a second. Alright, so I'm just grabbing some kind of button type pieces, or some pins. Alright, so a lot of times when I'm working on stuff like this, I'll add various elements to it to help give it extra texture and definition that it's harder for me to do just by sculpting it. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I've got some just nice round, buttons for upholstery. They are just kind of these coppery buttons. I'm going to use some wire snips to cut part of it off because I don't need it to be as long as it is. And then I'm going to take that and just going to kind of jam that in here. And it's just going to give it a nice round... Oh, am I? Oh, I didn't cut it far enough. I'm going to have to smooth that down some more and cut it down even more. There we go. Okay, let me take the water. One of the nice things when the Magic Sculpt is still soft, you can just keep on smoothing it down and rework it back to the shape that it was in. Okay, let's see how this works this time around. I'm going to put it in a slightly different spot just to see, and then we'll clip another one off. Alright, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do 2 of those on each side. Snap. And then let me see, let me get 2 more ready for the other side. It's just good to have different tools laying around. Oftentimes I'm doing this, and if I'm not streaming, I've got stuff like down in my shed that I don't just have handy. I'm like, oh, I need to run down and get that. But I keep a couple of things that I know will come in handy regularly just in my studio. Alright. You know what? If I have enough buttons, I'm going to do a 3rd one because I think that would look even better. And so once this is like sprayed and primed and then painted over top of, it's all going to kind of blend in, and then I'll be able to paint it to match the color palette that I'm going to be using for this whole thing. But for now, it gives it a nice, clean, geometric shape that I personally wouldn't be able to get very easily, since all my stuff is usually so organic. And one more clippity-clap. Boom. Alright. We're going to spin this beast around. I'm going to put these buttons in, and then we're going to come back and touch up the back of that axe a little bit. Once that's done, we'll start doing a little more detail and texture on this beastie. Now, I don't think that my full 2-hour stream is going to be taken up with this guy. It might be. It might surprise me, and we might keep going and add more details and stuff. But if not, I'm probably going to do a quick little intermission, change the cameras around, and paint on my world map that I'm doing. So I'd done the world map of Revilo in on the computer, and it just doesn't look quite right, so I decided to give it a go inking it and starting to paint it with watercolors, and I started that last night, and I'm pretty happy with the direction it's going. So I think I'll get back to that if we get this all wrapped up. We'll see. Okay, so the back of this axe has the foundation down that I laid down on the last sculpting session, which is available on YouTube if anybody wants to take a gander, if you haven't seen it. I've got 2 previous sessions on this. I'm just going to add a little more Magic Sculpt here. Since this side of the axe is hardened and cured, I'm going to put a little bit here. I'm going to spray it with some water, and I'm going to smooth it down to try and get a nice clean, get some of these lines filled in that are a little rough, and then also kind of give it a nice edge as well on the side. Give it a nice angle to it. Make it feel like it could cut somebody, even though it couldn't. And now here, there's a lot that I can grab onto this beast that is completely cured because I haven't sculpted on the torso of it yet since the last time, so that's nice and hardened up. Here I just want to make sure I get nice clean surface area so it's easy to paint. Fill in little dots along the way where some of the magic sculpt came together, but I didn't quite blend it out like it needs to be blended out. And give it another spray. And just work that in. And since it does have that nice cured rigid surface, you can just press it down and smooth it out until it fades into nothing. That way you can reduce any seams. Alright, I'm going to wipe off some of this water that's down along the bottom edge. If there's a lot of water that's already on it, a lot of times it will not grab on as easy because it's going to adhere to a dry surface a lot faster. I'm going to go ahead and smooth this down with my thumb. And keep this going. So I haven't decided if I'm going to keep streaming on Facebook, if I'm going to stream on Twitch. I wasn't having a lot of viewership on Twitch, and I thought I might have more success here on Facebook. And then there's also Periscope, which I haven't tried. And then I saw this service that you can do, like, stream to all sorts of different channels, all at the same time for $99 a month. And I think if I built up my audience a little bit more, I think that might be a fun way to go, just to be able to stream to YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Periscope, all these things all at one time, and try and hit different folks, just because I know a lot of people aren't necessarily on the same platforms for watching videos. And I've never really tried I've never tried doing a YouTube live show, although I will be on one in November. Let's see. And no, not November. At the end of the month, around I believe the 25th, I'll be on Nerdarchy. I don't know where November came from. I will give Periscope a try. So, but I haven't decided if paying that much a month would be worth it, if I'd be able to reach that many more people. Because it'd be cool to get out in front of a lot more folks. Okay, I need to hold this beastie in place a little bit more. So I'm just trying to get a little bit more Magic Sculpt smooth down out here. And blend this down. So here is just a little bit more. I think this bottom half of the axe is almost where it needs to be. That Magic Sculpt will stay down. Let's see. Hold on to the beastie. And put a little bit more down in here. So after this is all sculpted, which I believe it should be done this evening, I will need to tape off its eyes, prime it. I usually prime just with some black spray paint, usually some Krylon or something that's going to adhere to different substrates or different materials, like the stuff that'll bond to plastic and bond to all sorts of stuff. And then the painting will commence, which I will probably I'll probably paint this guy Monday night at 9:30. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to do this on Twitch or Facebook, as I mentioned earlier. So keep an eye on my social channels to try and figure out, to try and decide which way it's going to go. I think I'll probably do. Thank you, Jason. I'll probably do the Facebook. I think. Just give this a week, see how it goes. Again, being back on it. 9:42. You have something going on between 9:30 and 9:42, Mr. Wilson? All right, just putting a little bit more on there to clean this up a bit. After this, I'm going to spin it around, take a look at the restream. What's can you tell me a little bit about that? Just in case I forget, and if not, I will match game 77. Oh, awesome. $7.99 a month? That especially if it could hit all of them at the same time, that would be so much better than the $99 a month. The biggest challenge I think I would have would be trying to figure out. Oh wow! All right, that I think that will probably be it. I will look into that. I don't know if I'll be able to get the technical side of things squared away by Monday, but that sounds like that is the plan. Plus, then there's the issue of trying to, at least with the what was the service I was looking at? It was Create Cast, or no, that's not it. It was it's one that that Patreon promotes, but the thing is, you kind of have to like manage all the different chats all at the same time, like looking at the windows for Facebook and Twitch and Periscope and YouTube. I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that, or see if I can get my wife to moderate and like chime in like a Discord channel or something via audio to be like, hey, look at this. Hey, look at this. Respond to this. Which might not be a bad plan, but that's a lot of extra work for a mod. Jason, it's your favorite. Alright, I'm going to put a little bit more on this side of this axe and then give this a bit of an edge. Then I'm going to look at the other side and see how that side compares to this side and see what I need to adjust a little bit before we move on to doing some more of the fur work on this beastie. Or maybe some of the handle stuff on this. Alright. Alright, I'm going to spin this guy around. I thought you would. Thought you would, Jason. Alright. So, looking at this, now I have to look and see that some of the magic sculpt has come around the edge from doing it on that side, so I have to blend this in and make sure that this has a nice smooth transition so I'm not having to sand that down before priming it. So I'm just going to kind of blend this in just a little bit. And just a little bit of brushing along there with the fingertip will get that all worked in. You and your clash. Alright, I'm going to spray the back of this, and I'm just going to take the same shovel tool that I was using earlier. Just bring a little bit of a line in up the back here, and there we go. Now I'm going to take a little bit more, and now that I'm looking at this top here, I want to bring this in, make sure that's a nice clean line for the top of that axe. And I want to bring a little bit of Magic Sculpt. I'm just going to kind of roll this into a coil and spin this around the top. Going to make it a little bit thinner and a little bit longer. I'm just going to press this in so that it kind of has a little bit of a ring around the top of this. But I'm going to spray it and I'm going to blend this in. And I'm going to take a flat knife tool, turn it on its back. I'm just going to kind of clean this up just a little bit. And all right, now I'm going to give it little notches in here just to give it some texture going on. Be careful. I think the conversation jumped and I forgot where I was. Oh, the knife tool, I think, is where you were going with that. Alright. I'm going to spin this just a little bit. Blend some of this in. I'm going to use the shovel tool to kind of push this down and kind of help seam the two together. Do it around here just a little bit. Alright. I'm going to do the same thing down around the bottom. And actually, I'm going to take a knife tool and kind of smash this back up. Give it a little more of a little more height to it. Alright, now that I've got that detail in, I'm going to spin it around, do the same thing right around here where it meets the wood of the handle. The more small details that I'm looking at, the more I think, wow, I need to do this, and I need to do this. Like, I think I need to do a little more around the lip. There's got to be a little bit of fur that's brought in around there. I'm excited to see this one. Seeing it in this grayish color is one thing, but once you start to actually see the colors come together and see it come to life, it's a lot more fun. Not that this isn't fun in the process. The axe is not removable. That would have been a little more complex than we were going with this. But that is a very good idea if I do something like this again. Or if, say, there was like a giant 20-sided boulder die in a creature's mouth. Something that could be interchangeable. Gonna just put some detail lines in here. Stuff that's gonna grab some shadows, some of the darker colors when I go to paint it. Stand up for a sec to grab this. All right. I have been giving that some thought. Because, you know, if it's on the wall like that, it might as well be serving another purpose and doing some sort of merchandising as well. Alright, so I've got that in. Before we move on from this area, I'm just going to put a little bit of fur over top of this lip here so that I can kind of bring it and have it kind of flourish and wave a little bit over top of the part of the axe. Gonna do just a little bit at a time. With this, I'm gonna blend it in with my thumb, and then we'll come in with a kind of the knifey tool to kind of separate some fur, kind of flourishing it off a little bit, and then come back with the rake tool to really give it some the fur texture that it needs. All right. All right, now just gonna cut into this a little bit, bring some shape into the fur before we put the actual fur in. Push this back a little bit. And then I'm gonna just go ahead and cut another little bit. Now I think we've got some, it doesn't feel uniform in the shapes that are coming out of there, and I think that's gonna be good for putting in the fur lines just a little bit. But I'm gonna do a little bit more right on the back where this lip, it's a little bit, it's gonna be a little hard to see, but right where this lip hits that axe, I'm gonna bring a little bit more Magic Sculpt in there to give that some more fur coming off of there. Spraying it down with a little bit more water and smooth it, blend it out. And a little bit more snarl as well, because you can never have too much snarl. Put a little bit of that in there. All right. I wanted there was a little bit of the wooden handle that didn't have any Magic Sculpt on it. It needed just a little bit, so I could put a little bit of detail into it before the painting commences. Also be able to give it a little bit of a separation there. All right, now for the fur on this little bit that's going over the lip, I'm going to grab my rake tool, which, just like the name, it looks like a rake. It's a little built up, a little clumped up. X-Acto knife, where are you? Just going to take an X-Acto and just kind of clean this off just a little bit, scrape off some of the dry, crusty Magic Sculpt that's on it. Just so I get slightly cleaner lines coming through this fur as I go through and scrape it down. Alright, that one's better. This one's better. Alright, here we go. So, I'm going to spray this down with a little bit of water before I just drag the rake across. I'm going to go the same direction that the fur is going on the muzzle and pull it down over top of the axe handle. Just want to feel like it's like ruffling that muzzle just a little bit more than what I had before. Alright, we've got that going. I think that is in good shape. So now let's turn this guy around a little bit. Now it's on to this little bit of wood here. There's not a whole lot going on right there, so I'm just going to take a little tiny bit of Magic Sculpt, roll it into a slight coil, and going to kind of spin it just around just to give it a really thin coating here. And even the leather will get sprayed when I go to do the spray paint, the primer on it, and it'll get painted just like everything else. But having that natural leather texture in there goes a long way when it comes time for painting. It just it adds so much depth to it. I'm gonna go ahead and dig a little bit of a divot in there into the Magic Sculpt I just put on to help add some more separation between that lip and the Magic Sculpt that's in there, and put a couple of little lines in just to kind of give that wooden feeling there. On the back side, that's looking okay. And now let's move on to beefing up the ears a little bit. On the illustration that's in there, I knew that I wanted to bring this ear down a little bit more and make it look like it's got more of a tear to it. But I couldn't really do that last time because I really needed this to harden up and cure properly. So now that it has cured, I'm going to add to that ear. And the thing about Magic Sculpt, it will just snap right onto it. It'll grab on and it'll be like it's all part of the initial sculpt. So with that, I'm just gonna put some of that Magic Sculpt on. Gonna get some water. Gonna spray it down just a little bit and start blending it in. And gonna get it from both sides to try and smooth it in and really get it blended. And then I'm going to pull this part down, the part that's the tear from the battle scar. Pull that down just a little bit more. And know that it's going to get pulled out just a little bit when I start doing the rake tool to put the fur lines in. Alright. I think that part's good. Now I got to take a gander at it from underneath. Make sure that looks okay. Need to put a little bit more under there. And just kind of blend that in a little bit. Just a little tiny bit, not a whole lot. Let's see. Try to... Whoa! Alright, gonna jam this up under with my thumb. Now you could use a tool to smooth this out if you wanted to, but I always prefer to just use my fingers to do this. And when this isn't on the completely on the cutting mat, it gets a little more rocky. It starts to rock back and forth just a little bit, but it's not going to go anywhere. Worst case, if it does, it's going to go right into my lap. Okay. Now I'm going to take that same tool with the rake. I'm going to spray that ear down some more. And I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. I would normally pull it down, but because I want it to kind of blend into this piece here, I want to make sure that I'm kind of helping to press some of that Magic Sculpt back into the existing rigid Magic Sculpt that's there. Now I also wanted to add to this other ear just a little bit. Let's see, where's that sketch that's on there? I just wanted to kind of bring this ear out just a little bit more on this back side. Give it a little bit more shape. And so with that, let's see, what's a good angle? There we go, that's going to be okay. I'm just going to do just a little bit along the side, and then I can work some more fur into this on the other side, which I think will be good to help blend that texture in just a little bit more. Not anything major, just the little details. And I think, like, as I'm starting to look at this axe a little bit more, I think I want to put a little more details into what I just sculpted on it. First, let's get this ear squared away. I want it to be a slightly finer line here. Alright, now I'm going to grab that rake tool again. Make sure this is all blended in okay, and pull the fur lines up and into what was already there. Alright, for the axe, I'm just going to put a couple of lines in that I think would help with it just a little bit. Then I'm going to take the shovel tool, do a line here, you do the same thing down below. Nice, clean, solid line. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing on the back side. I'm not going to rotate it for this because it's just a quick little line. It's just going to add some interest when doing the painting part of it. A lot of times when I'm doing straight lines like that, I'll get some I'll get some dental floss and pull it taut to give it a nice clean straight line. Since that was such a small area, I didn't think it was a big deal for that. Alright, so now, while we still got the Magic Sculpt nice and soft and pliable, I'm going to build up the areas that are the war painting marks just a little bit. I'm not going to build them up a lot. I just want to raise it slightly off the surface, almost like when someone is branded and they get that hot like metal press and then their skin bubbles up just a little bit. That's what I want to do here, just to raise up the fur line just a bit. I think it'll help give even more separation aside from just the paint when it comes time to have that visual separation of the depth that'll be involved with it. And gonna put just a little bit here and there. I'm just gonna follow along the outside line of where I have it marked off, because from there I can kind of blend it in and then add the fur and just kind of blend it all together. And a little more on the top. And a little more on this side. And then once we blend it in, I'll kind of shape it into place a little bit more just with my knife tool before starting to blend the fur in a bit. And there we go. All right. I know this looks really rough just like that, so I'm going to go ahead and spray this down and start blending it in. I'm going to grab onto the throat of this guy to help stabilize it while I'm blending this in with my thumb. Just keep blending and blending. And once this is all in, we'll get this fur thrown in pretty quick. But this will definitely help give it more separation. Totally, when mowing the lawn today, I had to take part of the lawnmower apart and I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing. I stood in an ant bed. They bit me up, so I'm a little drowsy this evening from that, I think. Maybe my system's just trying to kick it into overdrive. I think I got bit on my finger too, because that's like flaring up a little bit. Anyway. Alright, so I'm going to take the knife tool and I'm just going to shape this up a little bit. Let's get some more spray in here, and I'm just want it to be a little cleaner in the lines and not be so rounded, even though I'm going to come back and we're going to put some details in with the fur line brush. But see, with this, I can start to get some of those deeper cuts as well. And when I pull this up, there we go. And then I'm just going to pull some of this in. And once this episode is all done, I will, it's recording at the same time, so then I'll upload it to YouTube at the end of the night, or maybe tomorrow, depending on how I'm feeling with that. So that we'll have all 3 videos. And I think for my Patreon subscribers, I think I'm going to take the 3 videos, merge them together, and do why are my words failing me? I think for my Patreon backers, I'm going to do a time lapse of the 3 videos all together, just so that they can see the whole process and see it go and build up from the get-go. All right, so I've got this extra build here of the Magic Sculpt. I'm going to go ahead and spray that down and start pulling these lines in the same direction that the fur lines were in before. But this will help kind of blend it directly into what's underneath, but adding that extra depth to it. All right, and like that, I've just got that extra layer built up there. And some of the little burrs that happen from the Magic Sculpt can easily be sanded down after the fact, once it's cured. Okay, gonna take just a little bit of this Magic Sculpt and drop it into here, into these markings. And I'll do the one in the front as well, and then I'll shape it all out with the knife tool. These little details, kind of harder to see when it's just this flat color, but it's definitely raised up there, and that will certainly help give it that extra distinguishment of it being its war colors. And put a little bit more here, a little bit more here, and then let's give this a spray. Again, just spraying it with some water. Nothing too different about that. Just makes it easier to smooth down and move around. And let's see. Yeah. And for the flat knife tool, let's shape this up just a little bit. Get a slightly more interest in shapes. Cut in, do some cut-in lines, some deeper cuts for the fur. And pull this in just a little bit. The same thing on this side. And pull some up this way. Alright, so I've got that almost done. Don't really love that part, so I'm going to add a little bit more to this little bit of the nose fur. And then we'll do the other side in a similar fashion. Once that's done, I think I'm going to bring some more fur into this side. There's some areas that need to be bulked up and defined a little bit more. And let's see. Smooth this stuff down a little bit. Alright. Now that I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and grab the, what is my YouTube called? It should be Brian Art or the Brian . I should know this. Or if you go to briancolin.com and then scroll to the bottom of the page, there should be all the social channels there. Yeah, my fingers are a little too dirty for that, for me to be clanking on my keyboard. Alright, so I'm gonna grab some of this magic sculpt. Same question was raised on my last stream, and of course I didn't go back and remember exactly what it was. I should just have that committed to memory. Alright, I'm gonna pull some of this magic sculpt into these this top line here. Gonna do the same thing that was on the other side. Just go along the outside edges, blend it down. Pull one in here. Alright, I'm just going to keep lining the outside of this, what I drew on for the war paint. Just going to keep lining that with the magic sculpt. Then it will get blended down. I need to go back through this chat thread afterwards and make sure I look up that recommendation you had, Drew. $8 a month would be freaking awesome to stream to a ton of services. Alright. I'm just gonna blend this stuff down in, get it smoothed into what was already there. Stuff that's already cured. Then we will do all the detail work. Oh, excellent. That is awesome. I'll check that out. Have you used it before, Drew? All right, got that pretty much smoothed in. Now I need to kind of cut in the edges. Give it some good shape. All right. Oh, right on. Cool. Well, I will share my experiences with it, assuming I dive in. But I'm glad there's people creating products like that. It's definitely needed. Alright, almost got this shaped out how I want it. So I just wanted to give a little more shape to that, a little more control than what I just done with my thumbs. Now that I got that, it's time to put the fur lines into that. Spraying it down, trying to make sure I do not hit my computer with it, so that would not be cool. Going in the same direction that the other fur on this beastie has gone. Ooh. Alright, he needs a little bit more right around the top edge of his eye right there. It's just very flat. I don't want that. I want to give that a little more fur in there. Alright, got that in. Spray that down, give it some fur, and then move on to the other beauty marks that are on the front of this muzzle. Alright. Gotta separate this just a little bit more from the front view. Alright, I think there's definite separation between the underpart and then the parts around the eyes. Gotta give these marks a little bit of attention. And look at the original drawing a little bit more. Might bring some more up into the front of this ear here, but I don't know yet. Again, grabbing onto the back of this guy just to help steady it up. And just kind of roughing this shape in on the snout. Gotta spray it down just a little bit. We'll cut in with some knifey knife. Smooth that out just a little bit with my fingers. And just gonna keep edging this in just a little bit. Alright, and then do a little here. Bring some of this in. And pull this down, push it over. All right, this is going to be some good war markings for this Warhound. I think this is going to be a lot of fun to paint. All right, so gonna bring these lines in the same direction that the rest of the fur is going. It's just kind of raised up a little bit. And just going to pull this down just a little bit more. Alright. Now that I think we've got those kind of beauty marks or battle paint in where it needs to be, let me see. Let me look at its snout a little bit. So there's some areas from the first two sculpting sessions where it's not as clean as I want it to be. So I'm going to tilt it up just a little bit. I'm going to put some right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to, well, first let me make sure I'm grabbing it in a good spot. Okay. I'm going to smooth it and blend it up into the rest of the mouth up here. And then I'm just going to clean up the fur lines just a little bit. And just going to spray it down with some water to smooth it out. Blend it in. Try and get this as clean of a blend as I can, so it just kind of fades away to nothing, so it won't be noticeable. Do the same all the way around. So with that, you just got to keep applying pressure and just working it down. And then just make sure to go the same route, the same path of the fur that was done before, so it can kind of all blend together. Alright, so where'd my trusty rake tool go? Again, I'm going, grab this knife tool and make sure that this is nice and clean here. Gonna spray it again to get it good and wet for the rake tool. I'm just gonna bring it up and blend up, pulling it up in that direction. Alright, I think that's gonna be good. So I like the face of this guy. I like the overall lip work that's going on there. I think I want to touch up that ear, and then I think I'm gonna put some more fur coming up at the top of the head. But other than that, I think he's in pretty good shape. Let's see. Maybe pull that point up just a little bit on that axe. All right. Yeah, I'll do just a little bit on this ear here. Yep, and then it's going to be moving on to putting some more ruffles on the fur on the head and the back just a little bit, almost like its cackles are up a little bit. I'm just going to spray this with a bit of water, just blend this in. I just wanted this to have a little bit more of a wave to this ear, give it a little more organic of a feel. It was feeling a little too straight and rigid, and you can't see what I'm doing, so there we go. That's a little bit better. I just given it this kind of wave and curve to it instead of it being such a flat line. Makes it feel a little more natural. For as natural as a weird Warhound from Revilo would get. Alright. And there's also a little bit of a hole that needs to be filled in here. Is that? I see a little bit that needs a little patch of Magic Sculpt here where there's a little flap. Touch that up. One thing, it's good to move around and look around at your sculptures from every angle. Make sure there isn't anything that just looks completely out of place. Alright, so we're about an hour into tonight's streaming session. We're gonna do a little bit more sculpting on this guy. And he's pretty close. I'm gonna use up the last of this Magic Sculpt, just building up his fur a little bit more. And then I think I'm gonna call the sculpting on this one complete. And then we will go on, and I think I'll throw up a black screen for a second, so you're not getting dizzy with me moving my camera around. And then I think I'll do a little bit of watercolor painting on my map that I started working on last night. Let's see. Let's do a little bit crazier. Let's bring this stuff up. Let's get this in a different angle. There we go. This will be good. All right. I'm gonna do some kind of spiky, cackly. That's not the right term. Just want to get some more fur going on here, make it feel a little more wild and crazy. I'm going to have to blend this in just a bit. Figure out where I can grab onto, where I can't. Blend some of this in a little bit. So this piece is, I'll have it around my studio for a little bit. I'll take it with me to Gen Con to deliver to Dogmite Studios so that they can have it up in their booth at the show. It's very exciting. Yeah, let's see if this is a good place to hang on to it. Okay. So right now it just kind of looks like little slugs of Magic Sculpt that I threw down, and that's kind of what it is. But now I'm just going to spray it all down, and I'm going to blend it in and smooth it out and work it so it's kind of more like little tufts of hair. Make sure it gets a good grip into the beastie. Blend this in, smooth it out, try and get it so when I come back with the rake tool, it'll give it something good to give some good crazy waves. All right. So yesterday at my local cultural arts center, I went to the opening. There was a opening in the main showroom, and then there was the Artist Guild summer exhibit where I had one piece in, and I finally walked the floor of the I'd walked the floor of the room where the main show is in, but I'd never walked it and really thought about how many pieces are in that space. In October, I'm in a 2-person show there, and holy crap, I need to have like 18 pieces for that show. 18 pieces, and that is right on the tail of, feels like it's right on the tail of Gen Con and Dragon Con. So aside from the pieces that I need for those two big like industry shows, I've got to come up with a bunch of additional material, which is awesome because I kind of need it to film my art book, to really put a lot more into it. But I think I've decided that I'm going to try and have 9 new original sculptures for that, along with 9 full-bodied illustrations of those creatures, so that I can work all that stuff into the book and still have like a good body of work to represent Revilo and the creatures in that show. But it made me realize I've got a lot of work ahead of me over the next, really through the rest of the year, because as soon as that show opens, like the next weekend, I'm doing the Conjuration Con in Atlanta, so pretty much all of my pieces will be somewhere, and I'm going to have to make more pieces for that. So I'm going to be streaming a lot, I believe, because I will have to make a lot of pieces between now and November. Okay, so I'm just taking this rake and working this fur in, which I think is going to work out just fine. Pull that up just a little bit. Giving it some crazier and wilder fur. Making the profile look a little more interesting. Not that it wasn't interesting before, but give this a little bit more. Ooh, this rake is getting beat up. I'm putting some hurt on it. I need to clean it, and I need to order a new one. Alright. I don't really like that dip there, so let's bring that down. Sometimes you can look at it from one perspective and realize that something's just not quite exactly how you want it. Pull. Pull. Alright. Spin this guy around, look at him from all sorts of different angles. Alright, there's some area here that needs a little bit of attention. Cut in with a little bit of a knife. I'm just going to cut into some of this, give some of this some deeper lines in it. Some of this is completely dry. Just going to give some of this slightly deeper lines just with the knife tool. Alright. I think I'm going to call that guy done. I may look at him tonight and be like, oh, you know what? I need to do this to it. But for now, I think he's as far as he's going to get with the sculpting. Painting will be another thing. Alright, so I should probably be painting him Monday night, 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, here on the Facebook. For now, I'm going to move him down. 9:30 Eastern Standard Time. I think, yeah, I think he's good. I think this is where he wants to be. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep working on this painting of Revilo. I'm trying to do a map of the world instead of doing it on the computer, trying to do it in watercolors to see how it turns out. This is kind of my test map to see if I want to do a bigger version. But I just started on that last night, so let's jam on that for a little bit for anybody that wants to hang out and talk watercolors. So I'm going to move this one down, move it far out of the way where I will not accidentally squish it. And I've returned. Thank you very much, Drew. I think it's gonna be awesome once it's painted and once I've made the plaque for it. I think it'll definitely be cool to see that at another booth at all the upcoming shows that I'm sure we'll be running into each other at. All right. So watercolor. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to adjust this camera. So I'm going to turn a black screen on for just a second. Let's see. What is a good one? I will just say... Oh. Let's do the... Where is it? Where's the coming soon? Where did you go? Oh, there you are. Okay, so we all know that that's not really happening, but I'm going to do that so that I can adjust the camera. Just to try and keep everybody from getting seasick as I put this camera down. I'll still have to make a couple of tweaks and adjustments once the time comes to take a gander at it, but this will definitely be way better. And shouldn't be too long before I'm ready with this. Probably should have grabbed some paper towels to clean up some of my mess. Alright. And just one or two more legs of this tripod. So some of you may know that I've done a lot of watercolors in the day, but most of it was back in like 2004 when I self-published a sci-fi western comic book that, looking back on it now, it's not very good, but you know, fulfilling dreams is always part of what I'm trying to do. All right, turn off this coming soon. Let's see if I can get this good. And in the center, let me turn off the image of the dog mite concept. And let's see, zoom out of this just a little bit. Let's see what happens. All right, I think this is gonna work out okay. I'm gonna set this down for just a second, grab my watercolor paints, and grab something to kind of dry off this. Oh, actually, this doesn't even have to be here. Oh, even that's wet. I am a mess when it comes to spraying with the Magic Sculpt. Here we go. Get some of this water area cleaned up. Much better. And now for grabbing some watercolor paints. I've got a block of Winsor Newtons that I'm using. And I've got this brush that my friend Ron Free gave me. It's a white sable. It's got a really long neck to it, or long bristles to it. This is the first time I've really used something like this is on this project. So, all right. What I want to do with this, first off, is so I've started doing the water mass around here, and I want to continue this because this area down along here is also some of the water, but I wanted to come in and do it a little bit lighter after the fact. So I need to make sure I'm grabbing the right color, because last night it's a little bit brighter in the room that I was in. So let's make sure I'm grabbing the right thing. Well, indigo is definitely different than sepia. Alright, just going to grab a little bit of water, a little bit of brush. Let's see what happens. Let's do a little test real quick. Make sure it's the right color. Yes. Alright. There's a little sneak peek of a mimic that I was painting just for fun. You saw that sneak in there. Aside from all the shows and things like that, I also have a couple other side projects that I'm planning on working on over the rest of the year that are going to be just fun little items to keep me busy. Let's see. Let's do this, pull some of this. So I wanted this to be a slightly lighter blue in here, even though it's all part of the shoreline. I don't know why, I've seen that in other maps, so I figured that there was some logical reason to it. So if you don't know what you're doing, just kind of try and master it and make it off of somebody that does. And I'd reached out to a couple of map makers, seeing if they'd be interested in doing my map of Revilo, and I never heard anything back. So I thought, you know what, I'll give it a go with a medium that I'm comfortable with and see what happens. I know this is going to take a while, and this first iteration may not be the right one, but it's fun and relaxing. And so right now, just putting down this indigo color, and from here, I will end up putting down, I think some other colors into the water, maybe even some browns around the edges, just to kind of give it a little more depth of color to kind of build it up a bit. All right. Pull some of this in. I'm trying not to have any real white, not a lot of white areas in it. Just thinking of an aged map and thinking how most of the paper wouldn't actually have any white to it. But I didn't have any other like tinted watercolor paper or anything that I could work with when doing this, and I wanted to go ahead and get going on it last night just to give it a go. But this is definitely going to have a much more natural feel than anything I was creating on the computer, especially like when looking at like the map that I have for my trade show setup or my convention setup. I like it, but it feels very Photoshoppy. And so tonight or tomorrow, off screen, I'm going to be going through the contents of Creature Curation Volume 1 and all the creatures I currently have for it to try and determine where my next 12 creatures are going to be from. What areas of the continent that they're from, what areas I need creatures from to kind of help tell the story and build the world more. And areas that I have way too many in. Try and avoid that, and then also think through kind of the color palette of these beasts as how they would have evolved and changed due to the environment that they're in. I think every part of the world building is so much fun. Aside from actual mechanics. Most of the mechanics stuff isn't really my cup of tea. Like when it comes to gaming stuff, but thinking through the stories and how everything fits together and knowing that the pieces are always moving and their stories are always changing and evolving. I'm excited to see what happens, and like I'm kind of like looking at the overall picture of the next handful of years and how each year kind of represents a story arc in Revilo. Thinking of it more in serialized format, whether it's comic books or TV. Just to know that those stories are going to keep moving, whether you're playing in a game set in it, or whether it's the creatures that I'm making for art shows and conventions. A lot of times with watercolors, you just kind of want to let it do what it wants to do. Lay down a certain amount of water and a certain amount of pigment, and let it do its thing. Alright, that's a little foundation there for that extra water line. I may come back in and do just a little bit. Like, I don't know if I should have maybe not made that hard line here with the black ink for the water that's coming out into the ocean. But again, this was mainly meant to start as an experiment to see if this was the right direction. Because if this works, and if I like where it's going, I will want to paint this map much, much larger so that it can be a nice framed piece that would actually like be at the entry point to a show for me. It's like, that's where all of these weird critters live. Alright. Going to go ahead and grab some, let's see, I'm going to work some other colors into the water area. And I do not know what you are. Funny names of colors. Oh, that's a very bright blue. I think you're going to be very rich and fun in color, so let's see what happens. Let's add a little of you to this side. Almost a little turquoisey. And I'm just going to pull some more of this color since I've started it. Just going to pull it all the way through the outer areas of the water. Just going to lay down bits and let some of it do what it wants to do. Also, I think it might be fun to do a time lapse of this watercolor process, because it's not as, I don't think it's as fun to talk through the watercolor as it is to just kind of watch it all kind of lay down and start to happen. All right, pulling a little more up. It's definitely making it way brighter. I'm not sure yet how I feel about that. But I committed to it, so I've got to keep going. At least bring it in on this side a little bit, and then a little bit in the other corner, and then I can leave it at that. I may just have to figure out how to work that in later and see if it'll work itself out. All right, I think I'm gonna call the watercolor quits. Whoa, as I'm spitting water across, and just call this stream an early night since the sculpting part was done and it was finished up. So I think I'm gonna get these drops off of here that I just accidentally got on, and just call it a slightly early night. Let's see. So I think I want to tape this piece of paper down to a board to make it a little bit easier to so things aren't going to buckle as much before I add a lot more to it. But I'll be adding colors to this to the mountain ranges. Oh, I know, I can use this blue, this light, weird turquoisey blue in the icy mountains. That'll work. That'll kind of give it more of a purpose for it to be there. So anyway, thank you to everybody that's tuned in to my creature curation tonight. I will be exporting this video to YouTube, but for now, and I will be back Monday night, 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, to most likely be painting that Warhound for Dogmite Games. Again, thanks everybody who tuned in. I hope to see you again soon. All right, goodbye.